Thanks so much for joining me here on this Substack Live for today's conversation. For folks, hi Bobby, hi Kristen, who are joining, will you just give a little bit of an overview of you as a person, but specifically kind of your professional path? What is the role that you are occupying right now? And give us just like a little bit of context of how you found yourself in this position.
Great. So I'm a death doula and I'm also a therapist. And have been doing death work for like 8 years. So it was something that I was exploring mostly because I'm the oldest of six kids and started to think about if something happened to one of us that I would have no idea what to do. No one would. And so it was years and years ago that I was like, okay, what are the options? Like, what do people actually do in this
Mm.
scenario? And found out about things like advanced directives, which, if you don't know what that is, I'm going to be posting one on my Substack so you
Oh,
can
nice.
follow and I will share it. But it's basically like a place where you express your own wishes, your own end of life wishes, your own wishes if you're in a medical situation that you need someone else to make decisions for you. And so I got all my siblings together to do our advanced directives, as every parentified eldest daughter should do. And they were like, "Are you serious?" And I think I even sweetened the deal by saying, "We'll make old fashions and watch Mr. Rogers after we're done."
Okay,
You
I
know?
love that.
And so that was like my first entry point into even thinking about death and dying. And then from there did a death.
So I want to pause really quickly. So do you feel like it's accurate to say that your motivation, the way that I just heard that story is like, hey, I'm a part of this sibling group. And when I thought about my death, the fact that I hadn't done the work to kind of communicate how I was thinking about it, what the options are, what I would have wanted, you were almost like imagining or anticipating a disconnect between you and your sibling group. I really heard, and maybe this is like when you have a hammer, every problem is a nail, whatever that phrase is. But what I really heard was like, I even want through this horrible time that will come between now and 90 years from now, I want that experience of grief and loss and dying to be something that I feel connected with this group of people that's really important to me. It seems like that was your motivation. Would you agree with that?
Yes, through the lens of Liz Bohannon and community, yes, I want to say, how can we die together? And how can we be close in a really challenging time and space? And I think that's what we do so badly, at least at this moment in our society. I think in the past, we took care of each other when we were dying, and we died at home, and we died surrounded by people we love. Now, as a death doula, it is so common to be with someone dying and their family isn't even with them. Like, whether they're in a different state or, oh yeah, like I'm with people and sometimes I'm either the only person with them or like their children aren't in town or whatever it is. And I mean, I'm not saying that with judgment. I'm just saying that as a fact. That's just reality. And so for me, it's like, even if we're not going to physically be together, which sidebar, because I'm going to put my own agenda in here too. It's legal to take your loved ones' bodies home from the hospital and have like a ritual with them at home, which is gorgeous. And people, I hope, will start doing that more and more. Like, you can have at home funerals. We all go like, ew, funeral homes are so weird and there's like smelly carpet and it's kind of gross and sad.
Yeah.
You can have one at home. Like, this is actually like, you can have home birth, you can have home death. It's there, but no one knows that and no one does that. And if we don't talk about it before the moment happens, there's no agency simply because, you got to make a decision quickly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that.
So it's almost like, well, to kind of tap into that, I do feel like there's kind of two things that are working, and there's two levels of this. One is just on the societal level, we've become so disconnected from death. It is just like, I think as a whole, myself included, I'm just like, no, I don't want to spend my time living thinking about death. I have a lot of other things that feel more urgent and likely. And so, well, not likely in the long run, that's death is the most certain thing. But that it's going to, impact me in the next year. So one, I don't think about it. I'm disconnected from it psychologically and mentally. But then we have a whole industry that has been created that really does separate us from what historically and what most of our ancestors and what a lot of people across the globe are still experiencing is there's no option to outsource these things. Like in our culture, we've created a whole industry around it. So long as you have enough money, there is somebody that you can pay to do all of these things, which I'm not, also no judgment. I'm not saying that the death industry is wrong, but by nature, it becomes something that we can kind of consume. Versus historically, you didn't have a choice. You were engaging with death. You were kind of a co-creator in the process. And to your point, because we're disconnected from it mentally, because we know services exist that we can literally just pay people to do it, if we're not thinking about it until the moment that death happens and we're in the midst of grief, we're not making our most intentional, connected decisions when we are like experiencing trauma and going like, I have 4 days to figure all this stuff out. And someone else is going to swoop in and be like, here are your choices. And I'm going to go, okay, A, B, or C. And that may or may not in the end actually be the experience that I would have hoped to have created with some more time and preparation and intention and just connection to the process and to my options, et cetera.
That's it. That's exactly it. What you're saying is that we only really have the nervous system that's regulated enough to explore agency and what our options are when we're not in the crisis of grief and shock and loss. And I don't want to be saying goodbye to this person that I love and watching their body die. And I think capitalism has a huge part to play in it with like how can we, cash in on this? And it's also about it being really easy. And I think when people think about death right now, they think, oh, I need a doctor. Like even someone who is dying, sometimes we have to put their DNR like on the fridge to remind people they actually are dying. They're accepting that. Like, don't try to resuscitate them. Their body is letting go.
Mm,
But for a lot of people, the thing that I think is a really juicy sentence is that death is not a medical event. We don't need a
mm,
doctor to die. Our bodies know how to do it. Our bodies know what to do, and they're going to do it with or without a doctor
mm,
present. And yet in our minds, it's like, oh, I'm dying. I need a medical team. We don't. You don't. Sometimes you do, but medical people are actually there to keep you from dying. And if you're in a dying
mm.
process, that's when it's actually a totally different system.
Wow. Okay. Will you go back and tell us just a little bit more? Make it real practical, which you already gave us some great, vivid details around your sibling death night. You made old
Mhm.
fashions, you watched Mr. Rogers afterwards. But like tell us a little bit about what did you do? You got your siblings together and like what was the conversation from your experience on the professional side of things? If you had a magic wand and we're like, gosh, if all of my clients could sit down and dedicate even just a few hours with people that they love to this conversation, here are the most valuable questions you can ask and decisions that could be made ahead of time. How do we like let's assume everybody on this call is going to do this, but they're giving it 2 hours of their life. How do we maximize? What's our greatest return on that investment?
I love it as a prompt. I mean, if it was up to me, I would be like, get your friends together or your siblings, whatever close group that you are like, these are the people. If something crazy is happening in my life, I'm going to talk to them anyway, no matter what. Get them together and have a night where you go through an advanced directive. And like I said, I'm going to be publishing one on my Substack, and it'll be free. So if anybody wants it, just
Is it going to be
follow.
your advanced directive?
Yeah, and there's also like
Because I
there's
don't
an
even really know. Like when I think of advanced directive, literally what comes to mind for me is like the question around like basically life support and like, do I want to donate my organs? Like what else? What
Mhm.
is an advanced directive? A
Well,
good
there's
one.
a good one. Well, a good one.
Because
There's
I'm going to have one of the best advanced directives.
Please, please do. I want to read yours, but I think there's a nonprofit called Five Wishes. So if you're looking for something really simple, you're like, I just need to get the five big ones out of my loved one who's actually dying, and they're not going to sit and do this long thing. Fivewishes.org will tell you the number five, the top big questions that you need to know.
Okay.
If you're sitting with your friends and you're more like conscious, mindful people who want to really think this out and talk it out, it's going to have things like who's your medical proxy, who's making medical decisions for you. If you aren't able to, it's going to have, do you want to die at home? Do you want to be in the hospital? Are there any specific people you want, don't want? What about what do you want done with your body? That's something that a lot of times people don't talk about, and then they die, and then their loved ones have to guess at what they would have wanted. And I became a therapist after I was a death doula because I realized that the amount of emotional turmoil that people have to sit
Yeah.
with, not only in because of grief, but because of the guilt, the did I do enough? Did I make the right decisions? Did my loved one actually want what I guessed at? And they have to hold that emotional weight after the
Which
loved
is
one
not,
dies.
we were just having a conversation in our community. We've kind of casually and without naming it until recently changed how we do birthdays in our community, and kind of like shifting that. I feel like it used to be everybody except that person kind of gets together and figures out like, is like planning something on behalf of that person. And I think two things happen. One, it's just like life gets fuller and fuller and more busy, and the capacity to do that feels like it goes down. But the second thing is, for me, what I realized is I have some anxiety around planning stuff for other people. And it all comes down to this question of, is this what they want? I'm putting all this work and time and energy into it. And I hope that the whole point is that they feel loved, they feel celebrated, they feel cared for. And I actually have a little bit of anxiety between like, is the delta between what I'm doing and creating and think you're going to feel loved by versus like what you were actually hoping for. And so we've kind of transitioned into being like, get as specific. It's a great gift to the community if you can be as specific as possible of like, this year, this is what sounds fun, life-giving, I'll feel loved by. Then the crew kind of steps in and will like plan it for you. But if you can just be real specific and name what you want, and it's been a really lovely, like I have found that my energy, it just removes my anxiety around like, you said what you wanted was fancy cocktails and pickleball and a walk on Mount Tabor. We're going to make that happen. Then we're going to sprinkle in some like surprises. But I know that at the end of the night, you will feel thrilled and loved by how we spent our time because you told us. And it's almost
Yeah.
like bringing that same energy into
Yeah.
death.
And
And I can imagine, oh, go ahead.
if you think you get anxious planning someone's birthday when you get a
Right.
redo next year, if you
Totally.
if you botch it, you get to do it again next year. This is
Yeah.
the one time. And people get so wrecked about it. They lose sleep, they have anxiety, they get depressed, they have all kinds because they're like, I didn't know what my mom wanted. I didn't know what my sister wanted. I don't know. Did we? And the other thing that I'll say is sometimes it's not just one person that has to make the decision. Sometimes that's when you find
Right.
a lot of fighting and a lot because grief looks different for everyone. And so if you have like 5 people in a room, they're all having grief, but it's all showing up differently. And
Yeah.
so you have person A that's like, this is how I want to handle it. And this is what I think we should do. And then person B is having a totally different experience. And the
Well, then you
last thing you
also
want,
have the competing thing of the dead person and then the alive person. Like, it was probably honestly after, my guess is we had connected or had some sort of conversation, and I was talking to Ben about it. And I'm really drawn to the idea of dying at home. Like, I love my home. I think in my dream world, I don't have some huge funeral. It is definitely not in like a stuffy, poorly lit, poorly designed funeral home. So my bedroom is my favorite place on earth. And I'm like, I would love to die here. But I mentioned that to Ben, and he had a pretty strong reaction against like, I don't think I, I don't know that I would want our home. I think his instinct was, now all of a sudden, of the 15 years of life that we've lived here, I think what I'm going to remember is like your dead body in our bed. And like, I don't know if I would want. So he had this really strong reaction. And then my reaction to his strong reaction was like, oh my gosh, you went. I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, I have slight preferences. I care so much more. I can't think of, outside of like desecrating my body and like doing something really mean, I can't really think of anything that I would be like, I feel so strongly about this that even if it makes you uncomfortable or it's not your preference, it's my dying wish. I feel so like, I want this to serve the people that I love. It's more about them than it is about me. So I almost feel like in my process, it would require me to get buy-in from the loved ones who would be doing my death stuff. That matters to me more than like my own vision of, I'm dead. Like,
yeah,
I'm gone.
Yeah, and you writing that out would be the gift to your loved ones
Mm,
to give them that permission and to almost like create a hierarchy of who gets to choose if there are 5 different people who want 5 different
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And my partner is similar. He's when I'm like, "We gotta write out your wishes." He's like, "You choose. If you're the one that's left, like, I want you to choose what feels really good to you." And I'm like, "But can you write that I get to choose? Because
Okay.
if something happens and then I run around going, "He said I could choose," and then, like, his sister or someone is like, "No, he didn't. He would have never said that. He would have wanted this." Then it's like, that's where I'm telling you, grief will do crazy things to sane people. I honestly think that grief is like an altered state of consciousness, just like,
Mm,
when people are in giving birth and actually
yeah.
dying, like all of these
Yeah.
crazy hormones that are happening. And I think grief alters what feels normal. It alters what we see as okay and not okay. I mean, I could tell you stories just being a grief therapist of what people do and feel and think about and say when they're truly in the depths of grief. And so to put it's kind of like putting, 5 different people on 5 different levels of really intense medication in the room together and being like, "Now just act normal." It's like
Yeah.
you can't. You can't.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Okay, that's a really practical I can do that. I could imagine being like, "Hey, in my dream world, here's some preferences. I would love for everybody to wear caftans." Okay. If that doesn't feel great to you in the moment, like scratch that if everybody shows up wearing black, like at the end of the day I'm dead, it's fine. So like putting together some loose suggestions but then being very explicit of like what actually matters to me is that these specific people feel like they have authority an agency to make any decision that best serves them and helps them grieve and celebrate and, process this. So I can do that. I can do that. I can get explicit about my who actually ultimately has authority in this. Okay, so you with your siblings, so you've got so 5wishes.com, is that what you said the website is? Okay.
Org.
So
Dot org. Dot org.
5wishes.org is going to guide you through here the kind of like critical figure it out conversations. Did you go beyond that with your siblings? And if
Oh,
so,
yeah.
what did that conversation look like?
Oh yeah, we had pages and pages because I at the time there's a person now who has a book that's a New York Times bestseller, and she's very visible death doula now. Her name is Elua Arthur, and she was brand new in the work and in the space, and I knew her before death work happened in her lives. But I had heard that she had written an advance directive. And so I contacted her and said, "Hey, I want to do this with my siblings." And she thought that was really cool because most of the people that she worked with were actually sick or dying. And she was like, "You just want to do this with your siblings? That's so
Mm,
weird." So Elua had written an advance directive that I used with my siblings, and it was very thoughtful, very mindful. Things like if you are dying, do you have smells that you really like or don't like? Do you have
mm,
music that you want playing? Like it's a very sensory experience. If we think about death as the end of your body, because a lot of people have a lot of different beliefs about spirituality and what that means to their being, their essence, their soul. But if we can all align and agree on one thing, it's that death is the end of your body. It's when your body is done. So it's a very sensory experience. And they say that hearing is the very last sense that our
mm,
body releases. So are there sounds that you want to be hearing?
mm,
Music? Is there a favorite book or poems that you want to be read to you? And just really thinking about it, sitting with it, imagining it. And so we did that, and we talked about it, and we worked through it. We ordered tacos, and we we talked through it, and it really. I don't know if it changed anyone else's lives the way that it changed mine, but I was like,
mm,
this is profound. And I wish that more
mm,
people even knew that this existed and were willing to do this and not see it as morbid, but as truly living in relationship with our mortality in a way that deepens the very life that we live day by day. Like the closer I get to death and the more that death is kind of like a friend in my life, the more I live, and not in a weird, gross, morbid way,
mm.
more in a like,
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with this kind of way.
That's so good. Um, oh shoot, I had a question about the sibling night and now it was one follow-up and now I can't remember it. But even just as you were saying that, it really did make me go like, While the idea, I'm like, Ben is who's coming to mind for me, but it's just like, ugh, the idea that if I had something, it's kind of going back to the birthday thing. I get real tender thinking like he expressed a wish and in his last hours, minutes life, I was able to like even just like put on a playlist. Like the comfort and peace that I know of being like, this is what you want. I'm as you are going out, I am like in service in loving you and I'm really confident in how I'm loving you feels really good. Like that feels like an emotion that I would love to be able to carry into like an end of life situation. Can you tell us about, so I imagine more often than not, but correct me if I'm wrong, your clients haven't done a lot of this work. There's a lot of guessing. There's a lot of grief on top of grief, potentially arguments within families. Do you have any stories of clients that you've had that you would be like, oh, they did this up front? They were intentional. They were thoughtful about this. And I got to witness how different this experience of dying was for this person and then their loved ones compared to kind of the more normative situation that you see? I don't know if you
Yeah.
have like HIPAA, how like if you can talk about other people's deaths with
Yeah.
specificity, but
Yeah, there are some that I can speak to, and I think the one that comes to mind is someone who's become a dear friend, and we got to know each other through school. We met in school, and his mom was had Alzheimer's at the time, and she's since died. But when I met him, it was earlier on in the decline and also the grief, and just getting to process and talk about what does she want and what are the feelings and emotions that come along with that. And I think the way that I remember her death and the way that her sons honored her and honored her body. I mean, they covered her body in roses and they made her this
mm,
like gorgeous crown of herbs and put it on her head, and it was just stunning. They had this like ritual of washing her body and just honoring. I mean, this is like, you and I are both moms, so I'm like, I'm gonna cry just talking about being like, the this is our mom's body that she brought us here, and now we're seeing her out. And it was just so beautiful and so excruciating. Like, there's nothing about it that is just easy, and yet it's, how can we be with this and be fully present with this, with the honor and dignity and care that this person in our life deserves. And I mean, I wish I could post the photos because they're just so stunning.
mm,
I think about having, like, an artist make a rendering of
mm,
them so that I can
mm,
show what's possible. Because I think that's
yeah,
something that's difficult in the work that I do is we don't talk a lot about it, but we also don't see what's possible, and then we're in the minute of, like, "Oh, my loved one needs a place to be while they're dying, or they need a place for a funeral," and then it's just like, "Okay, we'll call the local funeral home," and it's like,
yeah,
no, 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 don't. Not that I'm speaking against funeral homes because they're very important, but like there are other options. And I'm just hoping that more over the coming, months and years, that there will be more people just seeing what's possible and going, oh, I didn't even think of that because I didn't know that that was even an option. There was some that I was working with who their mom was dying, and they were like, "Am I allowed to touch her? Like, can I touch her?"
mm,
And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." I mean, it's kind of like when you're in birth, which again, you understand. Sometimes you're like, "Don't touch me." Like,
mhm,
I don't want to be touched. But they
mhm,
will tell you that. And if not, you can cuddle them up, hold them, do anything that you want to do. And I think that there's so many similarities between birth and between death. And it is a portal. It is the place that we come and go from. And so for people to be with it in the same way that we are with birth, kind of like you're talking about our sibling advanced directive night. I mean, how many people have birth plans? Like, a
right,
lot.
yeah,
And how many people have death plans?
yeah, yeah, very few would be my guess. What's also striking me is that it's such an investment in your own experience and sense of confidence and peace, and not like it's gonna be a peaceful like, obviously grief is going to coexist alongside of that. But you are removing one potential kind of negative stream of emotion that just is like confusion, worry, guilt, regret. if you feel really confident. So it's like you're investing in yourself and your own experience of how to be with someone as they're dying. You're investing obviously in your relationship with the person who is dying and just giving you confidence that this is what they want, and that you're aware of that and able to serve them in that way. But it also feels like a really significant investment in the relationships that are going to surround that dying person. So whether it's the siblings or a family group or even a friend group, that it just feels like, you had the analogy of you put 5 people in a room on very different medications and be like, hey, like, see how this goes. You're still doing that because everybody's in grief, but it does feel pretty different if you can hold something up and go, this is what we're all orienting around here. That we do have one single source of truth that is guiding us in this moment, and how just like it truly does feel like that could be the difference between just like a Lord of the Flies situation versus like, yeah, we're all dealing with this in very different ways, but we have one commonality, which is this kind of source of truth that we know was created by the person that we're all here to like love and honor. And that feels like, I think any major transition in life and grief moment, loss, really does expedite and have the ability to, it just feels so extreme. Like we come out of those things either having broken apart and being like we could not, it drove a wedge between our relationship and there is a true before and after in connectedness, or it drove us together. And it sounds so cliche, but I think like major events, transitions, and grief and loss have the power to be incredible forces for disconnection and resentment and huge emotions that sometimes over the course of a lifetime can't be repaired. Or this thing that truly does bond us and like bring us together. And it sure does feel like this investment is not a foolproof way to do that. There's, of course, so many different factors and big emotions and life experiences, but gosh, it feels like pretty good investment in making that a path of connection for those who have survived and are left to keep living after a loss like that.
Yes, I'm nodding because everything you're saying is totally spot on, and I could give you an anecdote and a story for every single thing you just touched on. Just backing up what you're saying, that people fall apart over this stuff. They start fighting and never speak to each other again. There was there was a reel on Instagram that showed up in my algorithm, was like, you probably like this. And it was someone that was like, my family stopped talking over our inheritance and we were all fighting over it. And then it was like the inheritance. And it was like a broken down chicken coop, but like the amount of fighting that goes on over like dividing the wealth and all of the assets and, who gets what and what would she have wanted. And the amount of just chaos that happens is beyond what you can even imagine. And yet, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's, oh my
Mm.
gosh, like one of my dear friends had his parents died within a few months of each other, and he has one sister. And he was like, we talked like twice a year before they died, and now we talk every single day.
Wow. Wow. That's really powerful. Were they somebody who had some ideas going, like, could you point to them as like they had done some work before this, or was it just kind of luck?
Well, they had one parent. You mean the people who died, or like had they done work
Yeah, no, no, no.
emotionally on
The
themselves?
siblings, like, had they come together to kind of figure out? Had their parents? Did they do
Yeah.
anything to kind of help set their kids up to be connected in their death versus disconnected?
Well, the first one had, because they had a warning that the first one was gonna die, but then the second one, they
Okay.
had no
Yeah.
warning. So it was kind of like there was okay, we're grieving the loss of our first parent, and we're processing that, and then all of a sudden, in the midst of it, their other parent died of basically like a broken heart, just like had heart failure at night, gone, the end. No warning. And that kind of trauma, I think, can can mean that there's just no that there wasn't much prep done
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
scenario.
Okay, so if folks are listening to this, and I will admit, we've been talking, I've known of your work since you started doing this work. Um, and I am just like, oh, I am the problem. So I'm like, every time I get done talking to you, I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to gather my people. I'm going to do what Caroline tells me. Have I done it? I've had some casual conversations with Ben and casual conversations with my community, but I've written 0 things down. Um, so I do realize that even people that are on this call or listening to this and are feeling a similar sense of like, okay, this is a wise use of time. This is an enormous gift that I could give people that I love. What do you suggest? Like, what can be a next step for us? Like, if we're going to do something in the next week to take action on this, what would Caroline say? Here's the next right thing for you to do in this process.
The next right thing would be to find your most consistent group of friends. Think of one group, not everybody, not like my family and my friends and my partner and whatever. Think of the group text that you text on really good days and really bad days. It
Okay.
could be your neighbors, it could be your college besties, whatever. Just your
Okay.
one thread and be like, "Hey, can we have a chat about what we want if anything happens to us?"
Okay.
And
So, question: why friends and not family? You very distinctly said group of friends.
because I think that family, there's just so much extra weight that goes to it. I mean, if you're
Okay.
if you're very, very best friends or your siblings and you've all been in group therapy and you know how to process hard things with each other and not make it personal, power to you. I want to know who your therapist is. But beyond that, I think like for example, my medical proxy is my friend, not my family, because I think that
Mm,
it's so much harder to be emotionally present when it's like your family that's dying,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
to then have to sit in a room with all your other siblings and parents and go, "I think she wanted this. She told me she wanted this." And then they have to look at you for the rest of their lives. Whereas my friend could come in and go, "She wanted the plug pulled. Sorry." And then walk out and never see them ever again and go have her own grief process. And so that's just my own personal meaning making
Okay.
around it.
Yeah.
But you can choose, and if your siblings are the people that you talk to about your good and your bad, then by all means. But saying, "Hey, can we just chat about this?" And I think that it's really actually hard to get people to do it. It is. I mean, you're right. Like I've known you for more than the years that I've been a death doula. I've known you for like 10 plus years. We've recorded a podcast episode together that never saw the light of day. She's not ready to talk about death on her podcast, people. Um, and that was like over a year ago that we recorded that. And then I think I even sent you a follow up text that was like, "Hey, I would totally fly up and like lead your community through like
Mm,
death planning." And it's
hmm.
fine. It just didn't happen. But it's not sexy. It's not sexy. It's emotional. Life is overwhelming. Our nervous systems are already maxed out. So, who wants to just sit down and be with a really hard truth that your body's
Yeah.
going to die someday? Who wants to just churn grief because it's a random Tuesday night? Why not? Like, why not? So it's really hard. And I wish that we had more like cultural practices, like, for example, that Easter meant the time of the year that our family beat
Mm,
with death. I wish that we would attach it to something that's already a ritual instead of making it just like, when is a good time to do that? I wish that it was like, no, now, like we do it once a year. I wish that it was like our birthday, that every year on our birthday, we would just go like, "Hey, let me just update you on my latest end of life wishes." Once a
wow. That
year.
feels like a yeah, turning the birthday into that. I will say, I'm a Christian, and we have in the Christian tradition, we've got Good Friday, which is the day that Jesus died, and it really is, or was crucified, and it really probably is one of my most sacred religious practices. And it's very closely tied. I mean, it definitely isn't just about the death of the body, but I feel like to me, having a faith tradition that so overtly acknowledges death, disconnection, these things that we're so afraid of, and actually gives a space to like ceremony. Like, I mean, it's very, there's ceremony to it. And there is like, and it's a very, at least in my faith community, it's very sensory, like all the senses, the music and the lighting, and just like the, the process that you go through to acknowledge that is pretty close. Like, I feel really grateful to have a tradition that actually feels like in one way, it's really saying this is a thing. This is a thing that's coming for all of us. This is a thing that actually impacts us on not just once a year, but like on a daily basis. That it would almost, and you would think that that feels, I think it's really similar to what you said about like having death be such a close friend to me hasn't made my life morbid or less alive. It actually helps me feel more alive and more in touch. And I would say something similar to that, that it's just like I think about after a Good Friday service, what I'm not feeling is like dark and depressed and like, well, it's all over. What I'm actually feeling is like a deeper sense of being alive and being in touch with. So I think when we create space for that, there is something really counterintuitive that happens, that it actually really does ignite the things that make us feel more present, more alive, more connected to one another. But gosh, it can be just such a hard hump to like get over. I
It,
think for me, it's honestly the urgency. Like it lacks urgency. I'm saying that this would be a great thing. I would definitely make CNN.com if I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's just like I kind of feel like I'm going to live forever. And I say that on Substack Live, and I'm definitely getting hit by a bus today. But I do think that that is the problem for me. It's just like my life feels like it is the tyranny of the urgent, and death in my midlife with somebody who's pretty physically healthy. Like it just, I have a hard time dedicating time and space to something that I know is going to happen, but I definitely don't think is going to happen anytime soon. And that's hard. It's really challenging.
yeah, yep. So two things that you said. One, talking about Good Friday, I think Jesus talked a lot about death, and he talked a lot about what death was and wasn't, and he talked a lot about bodies. And I think that if that is already a part of your life and your faith and your community tradition, then there's so many invitations to
Yeah.
be with that and to go, let's let's actually talk about it like Jesus talked about it. And also Jesus talked about what it is and what it isn't. And why do we have to make it anything other than what he said? If
You
that's
know
if
what?
that's
I've also never really thought about like, wow. I mean, I've known this, but I'm all of a sudden being like, huh, the way that Jesus died and what, like, he obviously had knowledge. It wasn't like Jesus got hit by a bus or ran over by a donkey. There was an indication that this was coming. But like, think about all the ceremony. Like, he gathered his closest people, and there was a meal, and there was like a literal ritual around breaking of the bread and drinking the wine. That's a pretty wildly somatic, like, I'm taking a physical object and linking it to, like, he literally said, "This is my body and this is my blood." That is very somatic. That is like very body forward. And then there was all of this, like, these rituals of connection that he did before his death, whether it was the meal, whether it was the washing of the feet. I guess I've just like never thought about that before, of being like, oh, that was all an act of I'm connecting with you now in the present, so that when this hard thing happens, we actually are connected through it. You're not surprised? Like, I'm bringing you along on the journey. It's like, I just never really thought about that as like a blueprint. I've kind of thought about it more as like that's what Jesus did, but I've never been like, oh, so you should, if you believe in Jesus and want to have a life that's modeled after him. That's like, there's a lot of ink spilled in the Bible about death preparation. A lot.
Yes, yes. I am happy to talk about this all day, every day. I have gone way deep into how much Jesus knew about bodies and understood bodies and how he communicated with us about them, and even how he communicated with us about death. Like, he wasn't like, yes, I get to die. This is so cool. He was
Yeah.
like, ugh, I really wish I didn't have to. I don't really want this. And yet, don't be afraid of it. It's actually not scary.
Yeah.
There's a
Mm-mm.
lot of juice there, and I mean, I'm not gonna, throw Christianity under the bus, but I will say there's a giant gem sitting right in front of the
Yeah.
church, like, I'm gonna just generalize in a way and be like, we're not being with it in a way that's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
hang on. We're missing out on the thing," like, I'm gonna throw my dad under the bus. We're talking about buses a lot today. I wonder what that's
We
about.
really are.
But my dad is a devout evangelical, and he will just say over and over again how death is such a horrible thing, and like people who want to be close to death, there's
Mm.
something wrong with them. And I'm like, you're literally like number one Jesus boy. Like how are we missing this? Like the closer I get to death, the more I'm like, Jesus got it better than anybody. 100%. So we could definitely
Mm.
talk about that and write a Bible study for end of life preparation.
Wow,
um,
this really escalated quickly.
I know. I'm sort of joking, but sort of serious. But anyway, I think that there is something there and that gets missed a lot by Christians, which is, dude, the person that you follow literally talked about this 24/7 and you forget that part. Except the one
Mhm.
day, Good Friday, with all the lights and the ballet and the dramatic music, and you all feel really, really good that you acknowledge that he died, but you don't actually look at that or like how he showed us how to be with it or how he talked about it or what the body meant. None of that. I mean, Jesus grieved too. Like there was grief around the way that he was, like I said, it's not like he was like, yes, I get to get out of here, which I think a
No,
lot of
there's in
people.
the Message translation, the first time I read this, I literally was just like, I lost my breath when it says that Jesus looked at the two, does he pulled two of his disciples aside and he literally said, I feel as if I'm already dying. Like, come be with me the night before my death, knowing what is ahead of me. I feel like I am already dying. Like that level of anguish and excruciating anxiety and grief about what was ahead of him, I think is so I've taken that to be less literal about death. I feel like I have thought more about what that models for us in life of just like I think a lot of people in general do this, but I think Christians probably just like have a spiritual lens to it that's different than maybe the average person. But I think a lot of us specifically here in America, we have this sense that like we should be able to handle more than we can, and it's shameful to have to ask people to be with us and to bear our burdens with us. And so for me as a person of faith going like literally according to my beliefs and faith tradition, Jesus didn't need like he didn't need other people. He chose to honor his desire to be with other people in that moment. And that to me is such a powerful example of not just like if you can't hack it on your own, you can turn to other people. It's like no, literally that's plan A. Plan A would be I could handle this on my own and I don't want to. Will you be with me in my grief? Will you carry my burden alongside of me, not because I can't, but because I actually believe a higher, better way to live life is to be with one another in that. That has really profoundly impacted my life, but I have thought about it more in the kind of tiny deaths and griefs and losses that we carry in life, not, I guess, the ultimate final loss of life itself and these human forms that we have.
Yeah, and to go back to the other thing that you said after we had our little Jesus sidebar was that how do we get people to talk about this and where in our super super busy lives as parents and business owners and partners and everything that we are, how do you just go like, yeah, cool, I totally have time to do something that isn't urgent, that's also a very emotionally taxing thing. We don't, so we don't do it. Makes a lot of sense. Did you did you just whack your
It's fine. We're okay. My bunny jumped
just
out.
over and over again? It's I love it. So what I will say is a couple of years ago, I made a course called Help I Have Aging Parents for those of us who have aging parents, because maybe we don't see our death and aging and mortality as urgent, but we
Yeah.
have aging parents. And I will tell you, like 5 people finished the course. Like, no, I was like, guys, you should be talking about this for your own elders in your life, for the 70-year-olds, the 80-year-olds in your life. I can't do it. So I'm pivoting and talking a lot more about birth lately because I'll talk where people are listening, and
Yeah.
that's what we're doing. But I will say, I have spent years trying to get people to talk about it, and it's very difficult. I've written book proposals and had, literary agents, and there's a lot of like, this is so needed. Wow. I don't know that people will buy it. And yet every single person who reads it goes, oh my God, I needed to read everything in that book proposal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like,
It's
so
so tough. Well, I mean, I get like, listen, Mom's got to eat. You got to talk about what people are listening to. And I am really grateful that you are continuing to show up today and in other spaces, and balancing out your expertise with the things that people know they want and need, and also continuing to show up and talk about the things that we, I think, in our soul do know would be life-giving and beneficial. But gosh, we have a lot to work through before we can actually prioritize and dedicate time and energy. um I'm not going to make any commitments here live because I've already made myself into a liar. What I want to do is tell the internet that in the next year, I'm going to complete this course. I'm going to do my advanced directives. But they also say, in advertising, it takes 8 exposures to like a brand or a product for us to then actually consider it. So maybe this is the 8th. Maybe this is the 8th conversation in time that we've had this. And this is actually the tipping point. And here's what I will say. When I do get my act together and prioritize this in honor of you and your work and you running your mouth about this, I will also use that. I'll share about it. I will share about it and be an amplifier of the work that you've been doing and the encouragement that you have given us and the tools. So let's talk real quick again about the tools. You said you're posting an advanced directive on your Substack.
That's
When is
right.
that
Yeah.
happening? Today?
Yeah, I'll get it up this week.
Great.
This is a good motivator for me to get it out there. And I want to say, just to be clear, I'm not going to be with people whenever they need me. Like, you may be one of the people who calls me. Like, my phone is always on, especially for people that I love. And my family knows this. It'll be like, sorry, someone's dying. And I'm suddenly on the phone in the other room, talking them through, here's what to talk about with them. Here's what to get. Here's what to talk to the doctors about. Like, I'm doing that all day, every day. But it's the crisis that I wish that I could save people from. It's the
Yeah.
escalated, like, I just want to hold my mom's hand and be with her. And instead, I'm on the phone with Caroline, frantically talking through this stuff. That's the thing. Like, I want to calmly talk to you years before you need this, not the frantic, I wish that I could just be with my mom in her final hours. That's the thing that I'm trying to get people to not have happen. But I want to be clear. I'm available to people, including you, including anyone who's listening. I'm available to support when it's needed. I show up when death shows up. I would just love to pad that experience with a little
Yeah.
bit of agency and a regulated nervous system beforehand.
Which honestly does, as funny as it is to use the word inspirational or aspirational, that feels inspirational to me. To be the kind of person, it's like I consider myself a deeply intentional person in life, in how I live. And I can just go like, I feel like so much I can think of nothing that I've been like, I really want to think about that. I really want to be intentional about that. I really want to be thoughtful about that and carve out time and space. There's not one thing that I can think of that I'm being like, that didn't result. That didn't benefit me. If I could go back, that was time wasted. Not one single part of living an intentional life has felt like a wasted effort. And so I feel like the data set is strong to show that same logic is going to follow us into death. And it feels inspirational, actually, to be somebody who has thought about this, who leaves my family and my friends, that my last act, if you will, is as intentional and thoughtful and oriented around connection and being together as the life was. So I'm going to make a commitment. No, I'm just kidding. All right, Caroline, thank you so much. It's always such a joy to chat with you. When she publishes her advanced directive, I'm going to publish this whole conversation on Substack with a link to it that you will also, it'll be in a form that you can share with others. And so I would really encourage you to also use this as a resource. If you feel like it is a great entryway to send to that text thread to go like, hey, listen to this conversation, and then let's have a follow-up. By the time this conversation is published, you will also have an advanced directive that you can use to guide that conversation. So thank you for your thoughts and also your practical help in death.
Thanks for listening. I hope
All
this was
right.
our eighth touch point, and I hope that you won't need to 911 call me anytime soon. But if you do, I'll pick up the phone.
That actually makes me feel really safe. That makes me feel real that there is like a secure thing knowing that like if the worst happens, you actually know who you could call that has that this is not also their first rodeo. So I really appreciate that. That makes me
Yeah,
feel warm and safe.
yeah, and I'll just say one last thing, to anyone who hears that and goes like, "Oh, that's true. I would love someone in my friend group that knows what death is." Maybe it's like, you have a friend that's a birth doula, kind of similarity. I've found that the thing that people are the most interested in is learning about death in the context of supporting someone else. And so I'm also creating something called Death Curious, which is going to be for the point person in your community who's willing to be the kind of like death support person, which I really hope that, especially as we go more and more digital and also like disconnect from the things that make us human, that there will be more and more analog things that just people go like, wait a second, this is a body. We don't need a human. We don't need a robot to help us be in a body. We need bodies. And so if you're death curious, also watch this space because I'm releasing something that's just more like, not like this is how to be a death doula level of death
Okay.
training,
Yeah.
but more like this is how to be a human who wants to be an intentional community member and knows how to show up when death is in the room.
I love that. And also, lastly, if you're like, well, that's nice, Liz, you have a friend like Caroline that you can call. What about me? I'm right also in saying they can just, that can be you. You can have Caroline too, right?
Sorry.
Like if
Yes.
somebody's watching this and truly something horrible happens next week, they can call you, right? And you can
Yep.
help them.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay. Okay. So follow Caroline. Hopefully you don't need to call her for the 911 call. But if you do, it's not just for me. It's for, she's available for you too.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Caroline. Bye.
Much
Thank
love.
you to everybody who joined us live and watch this space for these juicy resources that we're going to be sharing. All right. Bye, everybody.